I almost can't remember the Rolling Stones sounding so great, so fantastic. This is a little bit of an exploration of the compact disc, the SACD DSD. Now, I'm not going to get into technical terms here, but I had a epiphany the last few days, and I'm going to tell that story. It's Mazzy here. Welcome back. I'm going to talk about the Rolling Stones 2002 SACD release that APCO put out. Now, APCO is one of those labels that frequently the Alan Klein organization has gotten it wrong when it comes to the Rolling Stones. However, I think they actually get it right a lot of the times, and they have continually repackaged records of the Stones and comps over the years. Remember, they did Hot Rocks, and Hot Rocks, Alan Klein, was a major success, and because of that, Alan Klein, not because of that, but around the little time after that, the Beatles' Red and Blue album, really a brainchild of Alan Klein as a result of a response to the bootleg TV series of the Beatle records, the Omega Beatle box, kind of a gray area bootleg thing, and the Red and Blue came out for the Beatles. But this is a Stones video. I need to take a few steps back to tell you why this is important to me personally. And I'm going to talk about compact discs today and the Rolling Stones and not vinyl. And I am, as you can see, heavily invested in the compact discs from about 1987 or so up until about 1988, 98, 2008. So 20 years, 88, 98, 2008, a good 20 years, I kind of put my vinyl aside and was all immersed in the compact disc era. I stored a lot of my vinyl. I had 6,000 pieces, a lot of promos from my music record days. Of course, a lot of purchases growing up in the vinyl era. And I got rid of 2,000, a third of my 6,000 LP collection then. Big mistake. I'm very much aligned with a lot of people in my generation that saw the compact discs of, oh my God, there's no skips and no noise and the ease of it. But there is something missing. If you're really into vinyl and you have a pretty decent setup, you do miss something in the sound. This isn't a video of CDs versus vinyl. I've done that. Many people have done that because I enjoy CDs. But again, last night and the last night before that, something happened, and it excited me with these records. So the compact disc came. My son was born in December of 1990, and during that decade, most of that decade, I really was a CD person. Having a young son in the house, we had a dog, we had a cat, the whole thing with vinyl and records, and you had to take a little care for it, which you do for the most part, but you don't have to baby vinyl records either. That's a story for another day, and I get so kind of over the top responsive for these people that seem to want to baby their records like they're this precious object. Of course, when you're paying $100 for a rare record, it is a precious object, but to me, that defeats the purpose of the enjoyment of the music. Again, another topic that's seeping into this topic. So I do want to talk about these because a few days ago, I did the major cable management on my main rig upstairs, my Riga P8 with the Hanna Umami Blue cartridge, an Aria phono stage, a Hagel H390 amplifier, an Oppo 205 CD, SACD, DVD transport, BMW 702 S3 speakers. Now, the cabling I used, the speaker cabling, was a speaker cable that was installed in my house in San Francisco in 2001-2 when we did a major renovation of our house back then. And I put sort of a whole house system in. The main room had a 5.1 surround system, a different set of B&Ws there, a Rotel integrated 5.1 receiver, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I did pull out at that time my old dual CS 5000 turntable, but I really didn't play records. It just fit on the music stand, the equipment stand, and I rarely used it. I was all in on CDs. DVD movies would come a little bit later, as I recall, and that was a major time. The surround I kind of enjoyed, but eventually when I moved here, I dismantled the surround because for me, music is not, I'm not into the Atmos thing, the surround thing. I've heard it, it's fine as a novelty, but when I'm enjoying music, 2-channel works for me and I like it. But in 2002, I bought these Rolling Stone albums. They came out the entire year from APCO. Now, at that point, the speaker cable I had when I moved from San Francisco to Seattle, I used, and it was about 12 to 15 feet because we had it going in walls and coming out. I had an installer do it. And so when I had it here for the last decade, I've had it rolled up. So where I only need 5 feet of cable per speaker, I had 12 to 15 feet. Not good. And it's behind this console, if you've seen my videos, with heavy records, and it's a pain to pull out, especially when I'm doing it myself. I should have asked friends to help me, but I had this bug because a little over a year ago, someone I know put together these cables for me, custom-made cables. I do have my BMWs bi-wired, which means on the back of the posting, there are 4 posts. And, do I hear a difference? I don't know. But since I've had them bi-wired since San Francisco, that's what I did. He made me a set. I didn't replace them. It took me a year to pull that out and replace it. And I tell you, it could be the psychology of change, or it could be just the emotional switcheroo in my enjoyment. I heard a difference, and I'm going through a period of burning the cables, and apparently on cabling like that, you want the copper to settle and all these technical things that I'm not going to talk about here either. Search out other channels that know about the technical side of that and the voodoo science of burning in your cables or your speakers or your amplifiers, etc. I believe there's something to it to a point, but apparently with these cables, 80 hours to 100 hours, it really kind of warm up, and all the juices within the cables and the parts and pieces get settle in that's apparently the thing that happens. But again, I am not an expert here, and I don't profess to be, so don't come to here for advice on that, but I'm just sharing my experience. So, since I want these cables to burn in, this is a long story, but just dig it or move on to something else. I decided to play CDs instead of vinyl for most of the time for the few days. I did switch in and play some vinyl to get an idea of records I know. But I all of a sudden pulled out one of these, and I was texting to a friend, and he was talking about Satanic Majesty's Request, the Rolling Stones' immersion into psychedelia in 1967. Famous quote, Marianne Faithfull says, the Stones never did psychedelic. Well, the Beatles did. The Stones, that wasn't their thing. However, I would argue this is a friggin' great album, and it's a great sounding record. So I pulled out the SACD, DSD, Redbook CD here, various layers. Now you have to have an SACD player, a CD player that's compatible playing SACDs. And again, read elsewhere what the difference is, what they are. I'm not going to even, what does the SACD stand for? Second audio CD? I don't remember right now. But I put this on, and I was literally blown away. The recording of this record. Now, the Stones aren't really famous for the audio file quality of their albums, but this was a motherfucker. This was amazing. I blasted it up on my stereo, and the delusion or the illusion of the new cabling, listening to these for the first time in many years. In fact, this is the first time I've listened to these since I've had my Hagel H390 amp. Has about 250 watts, separate mono blocks within it, I guess. And it's a really clean, tight sound. That amplifier probably was the biggest improvement I made in my system in the last, whatever. But I don't update my gear a lot. My major updates are like every 20 years. There's occasionally parts and pieces that fit in, and I have gotten, Hagel was a demo. The Riga was a demo, so I got good prices for the most part on those. You get a substantial discount with used and demo gear, and a lot of people that just, they're always in that upgrading mode. So take the advantage of used and demo gear from dealers. You get a substantial discount, at least 20%, sometimes to 40, 50% on used gear, and maybe more occasionally. But this was incredible. Of course, She's a Rainbow. The weirdness of this record, bar none. This is more psychedelic, probably, than Sgt. Pepper. And of course, very similar. Michael Cooper, the same photographer who photographed that too. So I decided to take a deep dive, and I'm not going to go through every one here. In fact, let me just show you some of these. What's interesting about these 2002 SACDs that APCO put out, they put out the American and the British editions, very much like they did with the mono box a few years ago on vinyl. That is exceptional. Now, these are a stereo. So you have the debut, Rolling Stones. You have December's Children. You have Out of Their Heads. The Out of Their Heads. So you got the British and American. Rolling Stones Now. These are the Andrew Loog Oldham produced records. 12 by 5. My favorite, I think, of the early records is definitely Aftermath. Both the American, that's the British and the American. Now, I happen to like the cover on the actual vinyl version of the British Aftermath. I love far better than the American cover. But Aftermath, I just think that's a great name for a record. I don't know why, but now these are the ones I listened to that I just was blown away by. Now, those sound good. I didn't listen to all these, but these are the ones I concentrated on the last few days. Getting in the psychedelia. As I said, I started with this, and then right away I switched to my favorite Rolling Stones record, my number one choice of all time, and that is Beggar's Banquet, 1968. Now, of course, they use the original pulled toilet cover. I don't know. It's cute. I kind of like this script imitation thing, but this sounds incredible. The congas on Sympathy for the Devil, the recording of that. These records, they're not bright, they're tamed, but there's good bass on them. Again, I'm talking like I know what I'm talking about, autophilia, but I put these up almost louder than I played my system in a long time. And it wasn't harsh, there was no fatigue, and I played literally 5 to 6 hours straight of playing these Rolling Stones SACDs. And of course, a lot of great acoustic guitar here. The rumor was Ry Cooder on this or not. Most people say no. Some people say yes. He's definitely influenced because he's the one that really kind of taught the bottleneck to Keith Richards. So that sound of that slide acoustic sound and electric is all over this record in particular. And then, of course, Let It Bleed. I mean, some people think this is the Stones' best album. I think this is, but definitely the 1-2 punch of these two. I don't think the Stones ever made 2 better records in a row. I love Later. I love Exile. I love Black and Blue. I love Sticky Fingers. But these, to me, are the perfection of the Rolling Stones. I mean, this is like great songwriting, great production. You can't always get what you want. Country Honk, even a little bit of a novelty, but Midnight Rambler, Gimme Shelter. Just everything about these 2 records, just incredible, perfect rock and roll with some swampy blues, acoustic southern folk blues. Amazing. Then I played, these are both the American and the British versions of Between the Buttons. I love these. And some of these are comps in America. And of course, like with the Beatles, the American London records, APCO, that, they were on Decca in the UK, and then they were on London in the US. Early albums were rechanneled for stereo. They're kind of a mess. The mono ones for the Stones are the way to go. And then, of course, once Sticky Fingers on, they signed to Atlantic Records, and they have their own imprint. And I'm not talking about those records here today, but this was great. I mean, the different track orders. This one starts with Yesterday's Paper. I believe that's the UK version. The American version starts with Let's Spend the Night Together. Now, to me, one of the greatest comps, and it shows how great the Stones were for psychedelic, Baroque pop music, and really wonderful. But this, Flowers, is a killer album. I don't care who put it together. This is amazing. This is Baroque pop, psychedelia, blues rock, wonderful songwriting. Opens up with Ruby Tuesday. I love Jagger's vocals on that, and the string quartet, I guess, on that. She would never say where she came from. When he goes from, beautiful. Have You Seen Your Mother, Baby? Standing in the Shadows. Let's Spend the Night Together. So, there is definitely overlap. You got Lady Jane, another wonderful, beautiful, classically Baroque type of rock song. At a Time, My Girl, Motown cover, Backstreet Girl. Please Go Home, Mother's Little Helper. Again, so you have that, which is also on Aftermath, Take It or Leave It, Ride On Baby, and Sitting on a Fence. It's a mix. It's a mix of time, but it works as a beautiful comp. So that's pretty much it. I just wanted to showcase here how great sometimes the compact disc can sound. And I don't remember a compact disc ever sounding as good. Of course, I'm sure if I go pick up a Dire Straits album or pull out, some kind of audiophile marvel, I get that. But when you want the greatest feeling of the music first and good sound, this was something really special for me. And I was blown over. And now I'm in the mood of playing CDs for a while. And it is a different sound and a different experience. So that's it, the Rolling Stones, the greatest rock and roll band in 1970 by default. Mazzy loves you.